Revealed, inspiring black chef's transformative 3 a.m. veggie chop exposes his incredible college ambitions. Malik Johnson stood at his worn-out kitchen counter, lost in a sea of ingredients under the dim light of his cramped Atlanta apartment. The clock blinked 3 a.m., a witching hour that sometimes felt like his only respite. Nights like this were a mixture of liberation and paralyzing fear. The rhythmic chop of vegetables became his therapy, each slice symbolizing his hopes, dreams, and unrelenting anxieties. They echoed in his mind. Could he become the chef he once dreamt of, just like his mother? The weight of her sacrifices pressed against his chest, an undercurrent of guilt that pulled deeply at his heart. Malik inhaled the aromatic notes of sautéing garlic, but they were quickly overshadowed by the haunting thoughts of his family's struggles. His mother worked long hours, slaving away in a diner, trying to make ends meet. She sacrificed her culinary dreams for bills. He could feel her aching, as well as his own. Did wanting to go to culinary school mean he was abandoning her? Would his aspirations betray the grit she displayed day after day? As he stirred a pot filled with fresh vegetables, Malik's mind wandered back to earlier that evening when he sat in front of his grandmother's dusty boxes. The yellowed recipe book he uncovered was a testament to the love and laughter shared, a legacy waiting to be revived. The stories imprinted within those pages ignited a fire within him, a yearning not just to honor his family, but to create a culinary narrative that refused to be erased. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just when it felt like fate had gifted him a purpose, doubt clawed back into his mind. The university buzzed with voices that depicted him as little more than a stereotype. Rich students, their laughter echoing in his ears, seemed to belittle his humble beginnings with just a few murmured jabs. "Will you even be taken seriously?" one had scoffed. Malik's fingers trembled as he transferred chopped carrots into a skillet. How could he silence that mockery? Each cutting sound felt like a blow. His dream twisted into a burden, the very essence of his family's battle and his will to rise, all pressed into a forkful of resentment and fear. The storm outside matched the tempest brewing within him. Each raindrop echoed the uncertainties of the upcoming days, particularly as the pop-up dinner loomed ahead. With money for tuition at stake, this night must be perfect. But shifting the venue last minute felt like the walls were closing in, so much so that he could practically hear them taunting him. What if he failed? Would this plunge him deeper into despair or elevate the legacy he chased? As he frantically cooked, memories surged from the letter that had slipped from his grandmother's recipe book. The words she penned revealed her own struggles, her resilience dancing across the parchment like flames. Malik's heart raced, the realization dawning on him. He stood on the brink of something monumental, risking everything for his family's future. Could he rise above the chaos? Could he seize this moment and transform not only his fate, but the legacy they built together? The question slammed into him like the thunder outside, demanding an answer, just as the battering rain urged him to choose between fear and ambition, legacy and self. Malik finished the last of the vegetable dicing, his hands shaky but precise. Each cut seemed to slice through the fog of self-doubt clouding his mind. He allowed himself a moment, taking a deep breath to inhale the scents swirling around him. Garlic, basil, fresh tomatoes. Each ingredient felt like a whisper from his grandmother, urging him to embrace the culinary legacy that pulsed through his veins. Yet with each fragrant note, another wave of anxiety crested. Was he truly worthy of this opportunity? The stakes were high, and failing meant more than just disappointment. It would mean betraying the sacrifices of those who had come before him. His mind drifted to his friends who had come to support him in the pop-up dinner, their faces brimming with excitement, and then to that arrogant voice from the university, mocking his dreams. "Will you even be taken seriously?" The words echoed again, a haunting refrain that clawed at his spirit. Malik glanced around his tiny kitchen, a battleground where culinary dreams were forged amid clutter and chaos. He picked up his knife, determined to carve out an identity that was distinctly his own, from the remnants of the past, yet unyielding in the face of judgment. Cooking wasn't just about the food, it was about connection, expression, and defiance. He wasn't merely following a path, he was creating a new one, richer and more textured than those who belittled him could ever understand. His phone buzzed, a reminder about the upcoming dinner, and a surge of nerves shot through him. As he seasoned the simmering vegetables, he formulated a plan, not just for the meal, but for how to handle the evening's inevitable challenges. What if the venue didn't work out? What if the guests turned out to be more critical than he expected? He couldn't let fear dictate his actions now. Instinctively, his hands moved more confidently, mixing, tossing, tasting. Each flavor was an affirmation, a pledge to honor his family's story. He thumbed through his grandmother's recipe book again, its pages soft with love and history. It was a treasure trove of techniques, flavors, and heartfelt notes, lessons learned from trial and error. Each recipe was a mark of resilience, a roadmap showing that failure could ultimately lead to greatness. Malik mentally mapped the evening. From setting up the dining area to curating the menu, everything was part of a broader narrative in which he, for the first time, was the protagonist. The rain outside now felt like a distant memory, its earlier murmurs drowned out by the pounding of his own heart, beating in rhythm with his aspirations. But the shadow of doubt lingered. Had he truly mastered the balance of flavor that would captivate his audience? He had poured every ounce of himself into this meal, yet one glance at the beautifully arranged plates he was about to serve could unleash a flood of judgments. Would this be the moment he stepped into his spotlight, or would he squish into the shadows of criticism again? The clock ticked down. Dinner was nearing. Malik took one last look at the work of his hands, hopeful yet apprehensive. This night could send ripples throughout his future. What if it did? What if he truly flourished? As he prepared to head out, Malik felt a rush of determination surge through him. "Now is the time," he whispered to himself, fully aware that the challenges ahead were merely reflections of the struggle he had endured thus far. The door swung open to reveal not only the room of eager guests, but a battleground where he would prove his place in the culinary world, one plate at a time. The stage was set, and the weight of possibility pressed down on him, spurring him forward into the unknown. He took a steadying breath and stepped into the light, ready to confront everything that had held him back. It was about to get real, and at that moment he felt the unmistakable rush of excitement and fear converging. But as he entered the dining area, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching him closely all along, and that someone might just tilt the evening's outcome in an unexpected direction. The bright lights of the dining area flashed to life as Malik stepped forward, an electric buzz of anticipation humming in the air. Guests were chatting animatedly, their laughter a comforting blanket against the tightness in his chest. Plates lined the tables, glistening like invitations to an unexplored culinary adventure. He had never felt so many eyes on him, and yet, for the first time, he understood the power of that attention. As he made his way to the head of the room, Malik absorbed the sights and sounds, letting them wash over him. The extravagant presentation of each dish, the carefully chosen decor, the aroma that hinted at promises of delight, all pieces of a greater puzzle he was finally assembling. This was no longer just about feeding people, he was creating an experience. He approached the makeshift podium, a nervous smile curling his lips. In the backdrop of whirring kitchen equipment and gleaming tableware, he felt both exposed and invincible. This was a realm where he desired to thrive. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, voice steady despite the flutters within. "Each dish you'll sample tonight is a reflection of my roots and the journey that brought me here." He paused, noticing the various expressions among the guests. Some looked intrigued, others appeared skeptical. As he launched into his first introduction, the heirloom tomato bruschetta, his confidence grew. Each word dripped with the history of his family, their love for food, and the relentless drive that had brought him to this very moment. However, amid his sharing, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd, the university's culinary critic. Sipping on a glass of wine, she wasn't just there, she was scrutinizing. Malik's gut twisted. It would be one thing to present to a nonchalant audience, quite another to serve someone whose opinion could seal or shatter his dreams. He began plating the first course, his hands moving with a focused precision. Each slice of bruschetta was a statement, a challenge to that critical voice haunting his past. As the guests took their first bites, the tension in the air shifted. Conversations quieted momentarily, replaced by the soft sound of flavors mingling, an orchestra of his efforts. "Delicious," one guest remarked, prompting a round of murmurs of approval. Malik's chest swelled with a mix of pride and urgency, but he couldn't allow the praise to cloud his vision. There was still a long way to go, and doubts remained tangled in the intricate patterns of his mind. As he presented the second course, a delicate ratatouille framed by a vibrant herbed oil, he caught the critic's eye. Her brow furrowed slightly, the smallest flicker of skepticism sparking beneath the surface. It shouldn't bother him. He was crafting his own narrative, yet each glance felt like a test, an assessment of his worthiness. Determined to expose the full breadth of his culinary vision, Malik refused to let that watchful gaze derail his momentum. He concocted a plan for the evening, a rhythm of intros and courses designed not just to showcase his skills, but to solidify his identity. Each dish would embody resilience. With the third course approaching, a celebration of his grandmother's beloved spice-infused chicken, Malik prepared to step beyond his comfort zone. But the air felt thick, challenging him to push further. He could sense the excitement mounting among the guests, yet the critic's presence loomed, a shadow clouding his resolve. Tonight will be pivotal, he reminded himself as he started cooking the chicken in earnest. Each spice, each sear was driven by purpose. However, as he plated the final dish, he felt the tide of nerves crash back in. What if it still wasn't enough? That feeling of being watched intensified, and in that moment of heightened uncertainty, Malik realized he had to confront not just the critics in the room, but the one lingering in his mind. "Malik, focus," he muttered, grounding himself. The doubts, the fears, they were part of the journey. He could either let them consume him or transform them into fuel for his passion. As he presented the chicken dish, he locked eyes with the critic. The time had come to face not just the audience, but himself. Would he rise to this occasion, or would the spectre of inadequacy claim center stage? The tension in the air curled around him, palpable and electrifying, as he awaited the impending judgment, knowing that the outcome could forever alter his trajectory. What revelations awaited him when the plates were cleared? The crowd was absorbed in anticipation, forks poised, and Malik felt the weight of every gaze intensifying, a palpable energy that coursed through him. He had poured his heart into each course, but at that moment it was the fear that seemed to condense into a thick fog enveloping him. He fought against the urge to break eye contact with the critic, focusing instead on the shimmer of the perfectly seared chicken before him. As he stepped back, seeking a moment to breathe, he couldn't shake the anxious inner dialogue. This was his moment, yet it felt more like a trial. Each clang and clatter from the kitchen seemed to echo the thunderous beat of his heart. What if she found fault not just in the dish but in him? The imposter syndrome crept in like an unwelcome guest, shadowing his thoughts. Malik was determined to rise above the doubt. He remembered the countless hours practicing before a mirror, those late nights experimenting with flavors that felt so personal. His cooking wasn't just culinary art, it was a celebration of identity. Stepping aside for a brief moment, he closed his eyes, inhaling deeply as he recounted his grandmother's laughter, the warmth of her kitchen, and the fragrant spices that had once filled the room. Emerging from the web of nostalgia, he resolved to navigate through the uncertainty. He would confront not just the critic, but the inner voice that perpetually raised questions about his worthiness. Malik knew he couldn't shy away from fear. He had to channel it. Each plate presented to the guests became a testament to his journey, an invitation for them to partake in that evolution. His attempts to shield himself from feedback only fueled his resolve. The next course, an indulgent saffron-infused risotto, was in many ways a metaphor for his journey, rich, complex, and needing relentless attention to detail. As he stirred the pot, he lost himself in the motion, a dance between simmering flavors and simmering thoughts. When the time arrived to serve the risotto, he approached with freshly ignited enthusiasm, shaking off the last vestiges of self-doubt. This was not merely a dish, it was a reflection of his learning, his growth forged in the crucible of expectation. As he presented the risotto, he watched the critic closely. The way her brow furrowed had shifted. Now it seemed replaced with contemplative curiosity as each spoonful was tasted. Malik fought to capture this moment, to build upon it, as if it was a foundation as solid as the ingredients that knitted the dish together. But then, as she set the spoon down, the room fell into a hush. The overwhelming silence threatened to suffocate him. In that suspended moment he understood. This was his chance to transform the anxiety into clarity. He leaned into his craft, sharing the details of the dish, the source of the saffron, the significance of the earthy notes, and the memories attached to the recipe. His face flushed with a blend of excitement and fear as he felt the connection forming, pulling the audience into the narrative of flavors he was weaving. Each anecdote lent weight to the dish, embodying not just ingredients, but purpose. Then he saw it, the slightest nod from the critic. An acknowledgement, however small, ignited a spark within him. Perhaps this evening might not just become a culmination of effort, but a stepping stone into recognition and validation. Yet as he prepared for the final course, a dessert infused with memories of family gatherings, he could feel the gravity of his ambition pressing down. What if all this effort ended with a different verdict? Pushing back against the tide of question marks, he accepted the reality. Tonight would reveal not just his cooking, but his evolution as a chef and as a man. With every step forward, he was uncovering layers of resilience he had not known existed. The audience waited in eager anticipation, and Malik had a choice. He could cower in fear of judgment, or he could embrace this moment as one of profound potential. It was the moment to push back against the specter of inadequacy and challenge the narrative he'd internalized for so long. As he prepared to present the final dish, he steeled himself for whatever verdict lay ahead. With a deep breath, he whispered to himself, "This is my story," and stepped into the spotlight once more. Would he propel himself into a new chapter of his culinary journey, or would old fears threaten to bind him to the shadows? Stepping forward, Malik cradled the elegantly designed dessert, a delicate arrangement of poached pears drizzled with a lavender-infused syrup, a nod to the summer evenings spent in his grandmother's garden. The vibrant colors mirrored both the dish's essence and his growth over the course of the evening. He had invested his heart and his memories into this plate, the tribute to love and tradition standing as the culmination of his journey thus far. As he approached the critic, he could feel the collective breath of the audience hanging in the air. Each pair of eyes bore into him, amplifying the uncertainty that still lingered at the edges of his resolve. Would this dish evoke the same recognition as the risotto, or would it pull him back into the depths of self-doubt that he had fought so hard to escape? Malik reminded himself that vulnerability was not weakness. It was a part of storytelling, and he was here to share his story. With confidence, he began to explain the inspirations behind the dessert. He spoke of his grandmother's influence, the way her hands moved with grace as she worked, transforming simple ingredients into something magical. Each word he uttered was infused with intention, a testament to his resilience. As he served the dessert, he watched the critic's expression closely. Her initial taste was met with an evaluative silence that didn't offer the feedback he desperately craved. He leaned against the counter, feeling as if the walls were closing in, a familiar heaviness creeping back into his chest, yet he refused to retreat. This was the pivotal moment to confront the doubts that had accompanied him throughout his journey. "What if it's not enough?" echoed in his mind, but he pushed it away. Instead, he thought of the risks he'd taken to be here, the countless hours of trial and error, the evenings he lost sleep over flavor combinations, the emotional vulnerability of putting his creations out for judgment. Each has been a stepping stone leading to this very moment. The critic took another bite, her face a canvas of reflection. It was then that Malik noticed her smile bloom, a slight flicker of joy ignited amid her contemplative demeanor. A wave of warmth spread through him, signaling a breakthrough of sorts. This dish was resonating, possibly even connecting with her soul. Her eyes sparkled with recognition as she spoke. "This dessert, there's a depth here that speaks of familiarity and comfort. You've captured something personal in a way that's universal." Malik's heart raced, buoyed by her words. Each heartbeat synchronized with a newfound sense of belonging. The validation he craved was unfolding before him. He realized that this journey was not just about impressing others. It was about being true to himself. He was the amalgamation of his experiences, shaping his culinary identity. But just as he began to savor the moment, a doubt surfaced. What came next? Recognition may have been within reach, but the food industry was riddled with challenges. Would he be able to sustain this connection in the future? As thoughts spiraled back to the intricacies of the culinary world, the constant cycles of innovation, the finely tuned expectations, Malik felt a shift within him. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, he recognized a renewed sense of purpose. He would expand his skills, explore new techniques, and strengthen his narrative, but not at the cost of authenticity. He was committed to integrating his roots with his craft. Even amid the celebration of success, he was cognizant of the undercurrents of competition and self-doubt lurking like shadows. How could he transform tonight's fleeting affirmation into a lasting legacy? Confronting the critic had unveiled not just the merit of his dishes, but an even deeper conviction about his role in the culinary landscape. As the audience clapped and the critic offered her official assessment, the moment crystallized in Malik's mind. This was only the beginning, a launching pad propelled by his aspirations. With every affirmation, he felt buoyed forward, yet he couldn't help but wrestle with the challenge ahead. What new heights would he aim for now that he had glimpsed the potential within himself? The anticipation lingered in the air as anticipation brewed, a promise of growth and challenges ahead. Would he have the courage to embrace his next steps? As he concluded his presentation, a sense of exhilaration and uncertainty unfurled within him. The next chapter beckoned, one pregnant with possibilities. Malik stood on the edge of transformation, wrestling with the promise of his own future. What awaited him beyond tonight's ephemeral success? Only time would tell. The applause subsided, But the resonating echoes of validation lingered in Malik's mind, morphing from fleeting affirmation into something more profound. He stepped away from the table, the weight of the moment resting squarely on his shoulders. As his vision shifted from the glowing lights around him to the shadowy corners of self-doubt, he couldn't shake the burgeoning realization that this whirlwind of success opened doors, uncharted territories ready to be explored. Malik's thoughts drifted to the delicate poached pears. They represented not just a dish, but an evolution. Previously, he had relied heavily on familiar recipes, the kind passed down from his grandmother, wrapped in nostalgia yet constrained by sentimentality. Now, he felt a compelling urge to draw from his heritage while simultaneously blazing his own trail. Was he ready to embrace this complex duality within his culinary narrative? With that question swirling in his mind, he decided to leave the bustling area behind and sought refuge in the quiet kitchen behind the stage. The scent of herbs and spices wrapped around him, a comforting embrace after the chaos of the presentation. This kitchen was where he felt most at home, embodying both the challenges and creativity he craved. He took a moment to breathe, steeling himself as he envisioned the next steps in his journey. He glanced around at the neatly organized ingredients, vibrant produce, and polished utensils scattered about, each representing a facet of his unfolding story. Here lay the potential for innovation, the spark to create dishes rooted in rich tradition yet propelled into contemporary culinary consciousness. But innovation demanded courage. It required him to confront the fear of rejection, the very essence of vulnerability he had internalized during the presentation. A shadow danced at the corners of his mind. What if the next obstacle he faced was an insurmountable challenge? Not every dish would resonate, not every combination would find favor. Yet therein lay the essence of growth, a conscious acceptance of trials as essential to success. He pondered the thought of dedicating time to culinary experimentation, perhaps incorporating unexpected elements that spurred discussions around his identity as a chef. What if he recreated classic dishes with bold twists, perhaps pulling in spices he'd admired for their complexity, or flavors that spoke to his personal journey? He could tell stories through food that were uniquely his, connecting the ingredients to emotions and experiences he treasured. As ideas whirred around, Malik sensed an urgency. His heart raced with anticipation and fear alike. What if he committed to a bold piece for his next presentation, a vibrant medley, an exploration of fusion cuisine? He could experiment with unconventional pairings that spoke of his experiences growing up in a melting pot of cultures. Could he capture not just flavors, but also stories of struggle, hope, and identity through his dishes? That revelation shifted the balance within him, transforming fear into excitement. He envisioned collaborating with local farmers to source ingredients, integrating freshness and storytelling into his dishes. Each component could be tied to personal narratives that would resonate beyond the plate, sparking connections with those who shared similar histories. With a newfound clarity of purpose, Malik began to outline his next steps. A notebook slipped into hand. He started jotting down ideas, new creations, potential collaborations, venues where he could showcase his evolving style. Each line hinted at opportunity, a contribution to a larger culinary tapestry he was eager to weave. Through this evolving thought process, Malik felt the shadows of self-doubt begin to dissipate, replaced by a vibrant tapestry of potential. Yet, in the depths of his ambition, a question remained silently murmured. Beyond the creation of innovative dishes, how would he balance personal identity with artistic expression in a world often reluctant to embrace change? Before he could elaborate on that thought, a voice broke through the stillness of the kitchen, calling him back to the present moment. It was the critic, her presence an unexpected yet daunting reminder of the very arena he had emerged from. She approached with a knowing smile, as if reading his internal struggle. Would this exchange hamper his newfound momentum, or would it propel him further toward his growth? As their eyes met, the weight of the moment shifted once more. An impending confrontation loomed, pregnant with potential. Malik steadied himself, gearing up to embrace whatever conversation would follow. This dialogue could further illuminate the path he had just begun to trace. What insight could the critic offer, and would it challenge or affirm his newfound resolve? He took a deep breath, prepared for the crossroads that awaited. The critic stepped closer, her confident demeanor juxtaposing the simmering uncertainty bubbling in Malik's mind. He felt exposed, standing amidst the familiar hustle of the kitchen, yet profoundly out of his element with her gaze now fixed on him. This was an opportunity for growth, though the stakes were high. He needed to present himself not merely as a chef, but as an evolving artist, ready to declare his identity and ambitions. "Malik," she began, her voice steady, slicing through his internal noise, "your presentation was remarkable, but I sensed something deeper within you, a struggle you're just beginning to unravel. What do you want to show the world through your food?" Her tone was both challenging and inviting, a doorway wedged open for exploration. That question struck a chord. He had been so absorbed in the mechanics of cooking, the thrill of flavors, that he overlooked the narrative he desired to craft with his dishes. He thought of his childhood, full of flavors that painted stories he intended to unravel. "I want to share my heritage," he found himself saying, the words spilling forth before he could overthink them. "I want to honor my grandmother's recipes while introducing the world to new interpretations." The critic nodded thoughtfully, her gaze softening. "It sounds like you're on the brink of something significant. Are you ready to dive in, even if it means exposing yourself to criticism?" Her words ignited doubt and resolve within him in equal measure. Was he genuinely ready to confront the possibility of failure? Malik's heart raced as he considered this. Hadn't he fought against the fear of rejection throughout his journey? It was time to embrace that fear, transform it into inspiration. "I am ready," he affirmed, surprising even himself with the declaration. "I want to take risks that resonate on a personal level. I want my dishes, like this poached pear, to narrate tales of identity and evolution." She inclined her head, and Malik could see her jotting notes, a hint of encouragement enveloping her previously formidable exterior. Great chefs don't just cook. They provoke thought and evoke emotion. In your case, explore those dualities fully. Your disinterest in conventionality can be your strength. Her words swirled around him, fostering a growing determination. He envisioned the vibrant colors of ingredients that danced in the kitchens of his past, and how these elements could blend into a bold new dish, a vibrant celebration of culture, heritage, and culinary prowess. But still, the lingering question persisted. How would he balance authenticity with artistic ambition? Before he could articulate his thoughts further, the critic interrupted. "You need to take this narrative and share it outside these walls. Look for places that will let you tell your story." Her gaze burned with unwavering confidence in his potential. "The culinary world is waiting for your unique perspective." He nodded, the weight of her words settling in. There was a spark igniting within him, pushing him to harness not just his culinary skills, but also his narrative voice. With renewed clarity, he recalled his idea for local collaborations, an outreach to farmers who could supply him with ingredients that resonated with his upbringing. Perhaps he could even engage in workshops that blended cooking with storytelling, where he could invite others into his culinary journey. As his mind raced to outline next steps, the critic's next question caught him off guard. "And what happens if it fails? How will you cope?" In that moment, Malik realized that the exploration of his identity hinged not on success or failure, but on the courage to be vulnerable. His heart fluttered with ambition, tempered by realism. "I'll learn from it," he replied, summoning the strength of his convictions. Growth exists in discomfort. Each plate is a step forward, whether it fails or succeeds. A silence stretched between them, charged with potential and promise. A newfound resolve washed over Malik as the critic smiled, seeming satisfied. But as their conversation continued, he sensed an internal conflict brewing, a nagging uncertainty lurking in the corners of his newfound ambition. The culinary world could be unforgiving, skeptical of evolution, resistant to change. Deep within, he was on the precipice of a monumental choice. Would he risk it all in pursuit of authenticity, or would he allow fear to suffocate his dreams? As he weighed the implications, a sudden knock on the kitchen door disrupted his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. His breath caught, the confrontation with the unknown looming once again. What awaited him beyond that door? Would it be the support he craved, or would it present another challenge to his resolve? Malik steadied himself, every fiber of his being ready to confront whatever was next. The kitchen door creaked open, and Malik's heart raced, flooding him with a mix of anticipation and dread. A moment later, a young woman stepped inside, her demeanor both vibrant and filled with the frenetic energy that often accompanied aspiring culinary enthusiasts. She looked around, her eyes wide with awe, before landing on Malik. "Are you Malik?" she asked, her voice laced with excitement. "Yes, that's me," he replied, attempt at stability hiding his curiosity. "How can I help you?" "I'm Jamie," she introduced herself, fumbling with a notebook and a pen. "I've been following your journey on social media, and I think it's amazing what you're attempting. I wanted to ask you if you would consider hosting a cooking class with me. I'm not a professional chef, but I've learned a lot experimenting with flavors." Malik's stomach churned slightly at the thought. He had just begun to consider embracing his narrative, and now he was being thrust into the role of a mentor. But as he thought about the idea, he felt a spark of inspiration ignite. Perhaps collaborating could offer him a new perspective on what he wanted to accomplish, reinforcing his goal of intertwining storytelling with culinary practice. Collaboration can be powerful, he mused, tapping into that growing determination ignited by the critic's words. "What do you have in mind?" Jamie brightened, flipping to a blank page in her notebook. "I want to create an immersive experience wherein we share our personal stories alongside the dishes we prepare. It could be about identity, culture, anything meaningful. I believe that food connects people, and your heritage has such rich stories tied to it." The idea resonated within him, filling the cracks of his lingering self-doubt. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about community, connection, and the broader narrative that every dish had the potential to tell. But part of him hesitated. What if this venture didn't reflect his vision? What if it turned out to be another disappointment, culminating in failure? "Are you sure you want to do this?" he questioned, gauging her commitment amidst the uncertainty bubbling inside him. "This is not just about cooking. It requires vulnerability and honesty." "I understand," Jamie affirmed, her expression earnest. "But that's what I want. I want to learn from you. We can guide each other. Plus, I think sharing our potential failures up front could help others feel more at ease." Malik contemplated her words, weighing the prospect of allowing those around him to witness his authenticity. He could create a space where it was okay to make mistakes, a place where everyone brought their struggles and achievements to the table. "Okay, let's do it," he finally decided, feeling a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. "But we need to set ground rules. Authenticity is key." Over the next few weeks, they planned meticulously, intertwining their visions. They brainstormed classes that focused not solely on culinary skills, but also on the profound tales behind each dish. Malik's grandmother's recipes would serve as the backbone, infused with Jamie's contemporary approaches. As they worked, Malik felt a palpable transformation. He found himself unveiling stories he had tucked away, exploring not only his culinary roots, but the very foundation of his aspirations as a chef. Jamie's enthusiasm was infectious, pushing him into uncharted waters he had previously feared to navigate. Each dish they created carried not only flavor but layered meaning, reflected in the heartfelt stories shared with each new participant. Yet within that excitement, unease began to creep back in. The thought of exposing himself through this project began to pull at him. What if the reception was overwhelmingly negative? What if they misunderstood his vision? Despite the encouraging fervor surrounding him, that insistent voice of fear whispered, planting seeds of doubt that could easily blossom. Malik realized that the stakes were rising. This collaboration meant confronting his vulnerabilities head-on, opening his heart yet again to the possibility of disappointment. As the launch day for the class approached, he felt a blend of exhilaration and trepidation. The very act of sharing his culinary journey with others could either usher him into a new realm of growth or expose him to the harsh realities of judgment. What refrains would echo in his mind come the first class? Would they embrace the narrative he offered, or would they turn away in skepticism? The tension brewed within him, urging Malik to prepare for a transformative clash between aspiration and reality. The moment of truth was approaching. He would either soar or risk crashing. But that lingering voice asked again, ever nudging, was he truly ready for what lay ahead? Malik paced the kitchen, a slight sheen of sweat forming on his brow. The room buzzed with conflicting emotions, merging excitement with anxiety. Tomorrow, the first cooking class would commence, and he would stand before a group of strangers, revealing not just his culinary skills, but the personal stories stirred in the essence of each recipe. He glanced over the setups. Pots and pans awaited their purpose, the ingredients sourced meticulously pooled like a mosaic of potential. Malik's mother had once spoken about the magic that happened in kitchens, the ability for flavors to unite people. But could he truly invoke that magic while also unraveling the intricate layers of his own story? A sudden thought pierced through his uncertainty. What if they wanted something other than he offered? He recalled a critic's review that still echoed in his mind, underscoring the expectation for finesse and coherence. His vulnerability now felt like a gamble, like the blades of fresh herbs dancing on the edge of a knife, precarious yet hopeful. "Are you all right?" Jamie's voice broke through his reverie, her bright aura countering his shadow of doubt. "Just working through some nerves," he admitted, forcing a smile despite the turmoil brewing underneath. "It's okay to be nervous," she reassured as she adjusted her apron, her body language open and encouraging. "It means you care. Besides, we're in this together." Her belief in the collaborative spirit reignited a flicker of confidence. They had painstakingly created a structure designed around authenticity. Sharing failures and successes, they aimed to forge not just culinary fellowship, but a raw intimacy that transcended the act of cooking. Yet as the hour grew late, Malik felt the heaviness of the unknown weigh upon him. "What if it's not enough?" he blurted out suddenly, surrendering to the swirling doubt. "What if they don't relate to my story?" Jamie's eyes locked onto his, her intensity unwavering. "That's not for you to decide. The fact that you're sharing your journey makes it enough. Everyone has their own stories. It's about creating a space where those stories can collide and transform." Her words reverberated within him, slicing through the fog of doubt. But the haunting questions lingered. He couldn't ignore the memories that resurfaced, disparaging remarks about his background, doubts that had once suffocated his dreams of culinary greatness. How could he guide others to feel safe with their narratives if he was still caught in the turmoil of his own? Determination stirred in him. What if, by revealing his own struggles, he could inspire others to embrace their imperfections? Malik envisioned the faces of the participants, their curiosity and perhaps their skepticism juxtaposed against the vulnerability he planned to share. In the stillness of the night, Malik's hands gripped the countertop, grounding him. He reflected on his grandmother's teachings about resilience. Each story told whenever they cooked together, each difficult moment followed by resilience born in flavors. He remembered her laughter, the way her hands brought everything together. With this realization, a decision crystallized. He needed to lean into his truth fully. Perhaps it was time to embrace the idea that perfection was an illusion, that authenticity lay in the messy intersections of life. He wasn't just preparing dishes, he was crafting a space for shared vulnerability, for storytelling that could connect diverse backgrounds. The morning light would bring a fresh start, one that could breathe life into not just a new cooking class, but a step toward building the culinary narrative he had long yearned to establish. Malik took a deep breath, allowing resolve to anchor him. Yet as excitement surged through him, a new worry began to gnaw at the edges of his confidence. Would he be able to cope when faced with those who resisted the honesty he endeavored to share? What if, despite all his planning, a participant exposed an emotional rawness he had yet to confront himself? With a renewed sense of purpose, Malik faced the uncertainty ahead. The kitchen awaited, full of promise, but a question loomed. How would he navigate the complexities of his own story in front of others? Tomorrow, as the participants stirred into the space behind the kitchen door, he would need to draw upon every ounce of vulnerability he could muster. The true test lay not just in the cooking, but in the courage to reveal the man beneath the chef's coat. Malik stared at the shimmering pots and fresh ingredients laid out before him, each representing an opportunity. The waning light of the kitchen felt like a warm embrace, encouraging him to breathe life into his aspirations. The cooking class was not just another event. It was a moment that could shape him, reflecting his journey, his heritage, and his dreams. As the participants began to filter into the kitchen the next day, Malik felt the pulse of anticipation quicken, mingling with the nerves that had become so familiar. He met each hopeful face with a genuine smile, bridging the gap between their uncertainty and his own as he initiated their first lesson. "Today," he began, passion igniting his voice, "we'll not only learn to cook, but we'll also weave our stories into the process. Cooking is most authentic when shared among those willing to express their journeys." Participants listened intently as he shared his vision, guiding them through the importance of each ingredient. He spoke of his grandmother's love for cooking, her delicate hands creating dishes that told stories of resilience and warmth. As he reached for the peppers, he encouraged his class to connect with their own food stories. What dishes shaped their childhoods? What flavors evoked cherished memories? The atmosphere felt electric. That first lesson transitioned from mere instruction to something entirely more profound. It evolved as participants began revealing their backgrounds, weaving narratives filled with laughter and pain. With every shared story, Malik felt layers of doubt peel away, revealing a sense of belonging he had long hoped to forge. He demonstrated how to construct an heirloom tomato salad, allowing the vibrant colors on their plates to mirror the vividness of their lives. As they plated their creations, the kitchen broke into excitement, laughter bottled tightly, waiting to explode. Malik watched as connections blossomed, flavors brought to life stories, merging past with present. As the class progressed, Malik allowed curiosity to blossom within him. Rather than being pushed by self-doubt, he found himself examining the realities they were all navigating. Jamie, with her infectious enthusiasm, led discussions on culinary innovation, further enriching the environment's warmth. They spoke of personal failures, sharing the essence of that vulnerability that welcomes growth in the culinary world. "I failed at my first 3 dinner services," one participant confessed, her voice quivering. "But after that, I found my passion in what I truly wanted to create." Malik nodded, resonating deeply with her experience. He shared his own hesitations, leading up to this very moment, how every doubt had become a stepping stone toward his commitment to authenticity. Through the nurturing environment they built together, he felt the palpable shift, the burden of expectations replaced by the lifting veil of solidarity. As dishes began to simmer, an air of camaraderie swirled. The kitchen transformed into a haven of expression, allowing each member to embrace their individuality. Malik marveled at how, in cultivating an atmosphere steeped in authenticity, confidence blossomed around him. Eventually, they plated their dishes, each artistically arranged as a culmination of their stories that danced around their newfound abilities. The sight brought forth a wave of deep satisfaction. There was Malik, standing in front of a group of proud individuals, no longer burdened by the need for validation from critics or past experiences. Now empowered, he encouraged them to share their tastes, their reactions, each interaction a testament to their own growth. The applause echoed softly, but that resonance was rich with meaning. He stood there steady, realizing the moment he once feared had transformed into something not just impactful for his students, but also monumentally rewarding for himself. "This is just the beginning," he announced, his voice a mixture of confidence and sincerity. "We've embarked on a journey together that goes beyond dishes. It's about embracing who we are and where we come from. Your stories matter." Standing amongst the echo of steps and laughter, Malik felt that he had achieved something tangible, a bridge built between skills and narratives cultivated within him over time. Yet the journey wasn't over. He knew challenges would arise as he solidified his identity within the culinary world, but now he stood not as a solitary figure lost in self-doubt, but as a confident chef ready to embrace both the culinary challenges and the vulnerabilities they demanded. As the final moments of their class unfolded, he realized he had achieved something profound with this collaboration. He mastered the formative exercises of storytelling and cooking all in one, proving that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a pivotal strength that binds journeys. The critic's words replayed in his mind, transforming from a daunting spectre into a beacon for his future. Through Malik's courageous embrace of vulnerability, he had conquered not only himself, but had earned respect as a facilitator of transformation for others. At that moment, he grasped a vital truth. Individual achievement doesn't mean stepping into a spotlight alone. It often flourishes through shared experiences, readiness to dive into the depths of one's journey, intertwined with those of others. As they gathered for the final tastings, he invited them to reflect on the growth they had experienced in just hours, proposing a toast, not just to the dishes they had created, but to the daring authenticity they had all embraced. Malik reveled in the realization that he had indeed transformed. He had conquered the challenges of self-doubt and emerged invigorated, rooted in confidence and shared connection. To those witnessing his journey, he was a chef reborn, both competent and human, yet each achievement had only solidified the foundations of what awaited him, an authentic culinary legacy that extended beyond an evening's preparation and into a lifetime of storytelling. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let us know that you appreciate this incredible journey. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending, because we want to hear your voice. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.